Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Fortifying Your Faith. My name is Haston Hanley, and I'm so glad you can be here with us today as we are going to be continuing our study on becoming available or changing our availability so that we can better serve Christ, so that we can better embody the Christian mindset and attitude. But to begin with, I would like to say thank you to all of those who have been supporting the season so far and been looking forward to each episode as I've been looking forward to releasing these. I wanted to make an announcement, though, that if you are anywhere near the Murray, Kentucky area, July 29th to August 2nd, there's going to be the Gathered Together Conference, hosted by the Scattered Abroad Network at the Spring Hill Suites in Murray, and we would love for you to be able to come and to enjoy our conference with us and to be able to hear many lessons from the book of Psalms, as we're going to be looking at, I believe it's 200 different lessons over that week discussing the book of Psalms. So we would love to have you come out, look up the Gathered Together Conference. You can also find it on the Memphis School of Preaching website, msop.org. It should be under the Scattered Abroad tab or the Works tab. I think it should actually say Gathered Together Conference. And you can sign up there, you can see the schedule, and we hope that you can be with us for that wonderful event. Now, as we are discussing changing our availability, I want us to spend a few minutes discussing changing our availability to fellowship. How often is it that we actually get to spend time with Christians, maybe even outside of our normal worship service? When is the last time you went out to eat with a Christian? Or when is the last time you had someone that's a member of the church that is not a part of your family over to just play some board games or have an enjoyable time, maybe even have a cookout at the house? We as Christians need that time of fellowship. We need that time that we can spend together, because even before we get into the scriptures, the fact is we live in a time and in a world where if we are not focused, if we are allowing all of these different distractions of the world around us to creep into our lives, we're going to feel like Elijah did when he felt like he was the only servant, the only prophet left of God, because he had been isolated from the others, not by his choice, but it had still happened. We should never feel like we are the only Christians out there, because if we're attending worship service, then there's at least a few people around us, even upwards of several hundred around us, that are also striving for the same thing. So we need to be taking this opportunity and this blessing of fellowship and actually using it. So do we make time to spend time with other Christians? That's a very direct question, yes, but it's one that needs to be asked, because you look at Acts chapter 2, verses 42 through the end of the chapter, and you see all of these different strides and steps that the Christians were taking to spend time with one another. They continued daily in fellowship, in breaking of bread, in prayers, and all of these different things. They were spending time with one another, and they were not allowing that to be taken away. They were not allowing that time to be used as something else. They were truly and genuinely focusing on spending time with one another. Then you skip down to chapter 6 of the book of Acts, and the first verse begins talking about how the Christians were taking care of the needs daily of the widows. They were spending time every day encouraging one another, strengthening one another, and striving to be with one another. But I guess that's another question we can ask. If we are not spending time with Christians, if we are not fellowshipping with one another, then we are clearly missing the point of this, I guess, easy to be understood but hard to be applied sentiment. How can we know how to take care of one another? How can we know to actually work with one another, or maybe in what area to encourage the other Christian? You look at Galatians chapter 6 and verse 1, bear ye one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. Romans chapter 12 and verse 15, rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. James chapter 5 verses 13 through 17, the very same, or at least a similar idea of sing with those who are merry, weep with those who weep. If anyone is sick, call for the elders of the congregation, that they may do their job in praying for them and encouraging them. We have to be willing to spend time with one another so that we know what each other needs. Because if we refuse to be around each other, we cannot do our job. Now, I'm not just talking about ministers. I'm not just talking about elders or deacons. Each one of us have a responsibility to encourage each other or to build up each other. We need to be taking that seriously. We need to be taking that opportunity seriously, because if we're not, then we are missing a major area within our own lives as Christians. But finally, I want us to think, if we are not spending time with other Christians in fellowship, then how can we know how to stir up one another? Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 24. We should be provoking one another to love and good works. That is, stirring up one another. That's also in verse 25 of the same context, just the next verse down. If we're not spending time with one another, if we're not seeing each other in worship, if we're not actually being a part of each other's lives, then we begin to have a major problem. We don't know where someone is lacking. We don't know if someone starts veering off in their faithfulness or in their obedience or in their hearts if we just aren't around them. Maybe sometimes someone needs a big encouragement. Maybe someone needs a shot in the arm. Maybe someone just needs a hug. If we're not actually around one another and spending time, quality time with one another, then we start to have a big problem. Next week, though, we're going to spend a little bit of time discussing the fact that we, as Christians, need to take time and be available to grow. So I hope you can be with us next week as we continue this study. But until then, let's continue to study, let's continue to grow so that we can all fortify our faith.